Alright, episode 6 has an extra special part. I mean, tumeka Elsie tukafeel. We feel like we needed to do a bit more justice on this, right?
Yeah.
And we just want to cover a few. I mean, it's not even going to take long. We just want to cover a few that we left out, and we feel like, if we don't touch on these things, we won't feel a justice on the recommendations that they have given and touch on them. Okay. So, I mean, the first one, I've told you, this one is weird for me when they're talking about to think big and long term. And the solution they give on thinking big and long term is
a conference.
You know? I agree in getting every Kenyan of age, class, ethnicity, belief, and philosophy with a single aim to produce a vision of unique Kenyan civilization. Exactly. I agree on the vision part. The conference is what I have an issue with. If you go to the report, you will see. I think it's major recommendations, and it's part 31 when it talks about national ethos. We're covering that part, like take everyone, put them in one conference. Really?
Well, of course, it's not possible to just come up with the Kenyan vision. Yeah, let me call it the Kenyan vision, like the American ones, the American dream. Let's call it the Kenyan vision. I don't think it's possible to come up with the Kenyan vision just on one day in one conference. No.
And even building it up and then putting it all together in one conference,
it's really not possible, because it's not even possible to have all Kenyans in one conference room. Yeah, so it has to be done in an organized manner. So I think that's what the BBI should have mentioned. Yeah. That, probably what they could have done is set up a task force with groups represented, all tribes, or if possible, most tribes or most regions of Kenya should be represented. And of course, most groups, that is the elderly, persons with disability, the youth, the women. We are that special group.
Yeah, you are. Like, I'm not even trying to fight it.
To ensure that, and of course, again, that there's representation from the private sector, public sector, civil society, NGOs, and to bring them all together, to collect views, to gather views, and of course, at the conference, maybe the first conference, to gather the views so that they can codify these views. I don't know if codifying is the right word, but just to write them down, come up with a draft, and of course, build it up, and of course, eventually settle, maybe at another conference, settle on the Kenyan vision.
Yeah. I mean, let's scrap off the whole idea of a conference.
Of just one conference.
I don't see
it can't work.
Remember the national dress?
National?
You remember we had a national dress?
I'm not even aware. We had a national dress.
Wow. We had a national dress. Stop making me sound old. I'm not talking about the 90s. Check you. It was a 2020. No, it was a 2005 or something. I can't remember.
We have a national dress.
Hey, we had a whole event to it, national dress, but they never picked up.
I'm not aware.
It looked bad. That's why it never even made it so far.
Oh.
Sorry, maybe someone liked it, but I majority of Kenyans didn't even second guess it.
Okay,
it wasn't there, and I think that's important. And I know you held that women part, making it sound like like I will fight it. I don't actually, because it really needs to be inclusive.
Yeah.
And even when they point out age, class, ethnicity, I think that was just to grammatically finish this report. There's a lot more that needs to be pointed out that covers when it comes to thinking big and long term. And the Kenyan vision is not what would just be written by anyone anywhere. It needs to cover for Kenyans. By the time the vision is being put out there and we say it's ours, you feel proud about it because it tackles
and you
everything.
Own it, yeah.
And you own it.
You feel like it's your own because you somehow contributed to that Kenyan vision.
It's true. So I think just for the report for me is move away from the conference. This is something bigger than just the conference. Skip the whole idea. I feel like this guy was rushing to add on that part when he said age, class, ethnicity, belief, and philosophy, where that's too simple. There's a lot more that needs to be covered and tackled in that specific part when it comes to thinking about this vision.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, what we've seen in other countries, like when they share the culture, like you'll move from one space where they're saying God save the Queen to home of the free and land of the brave. I think it tackles what they have in their region. And if we put ours, let's not borrow sana kila mahali. Let's make it completely ours. When we say women, we need to point out even which role they will play when we are writing that vision and where they'll be coming from, for sure. Yeah. So I think we've covered that part properly.
We've covered it properly. And, big up to the BBI task force, because what I've seen is there's a book that I've read. It's known as The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So the second habit is beginning with the end in mind. So beginning with the end in mind basically talks about, you need to first have a vision. Before you actually materialize something that you want to achieve, you need to first build it in your mind. So that is beginning with the end in mind. And so this is the first pillar, actually, this lack of national ethos. So it's the first pillar. So if we want to go somewhere as Kenya, we must first have a vision. So it's a good idea.
So
but now conference, speaking about their idea about having a conference, it's more than a day event. It's more than just one conference.
It's not just one day. I think point number 31 needs to tell us what the end looks like, so people can actually appreciate this whole idea. Because me seeing a conference and not seeing the end clearly, I feel like the end was rushed for us, just because when you finish and you say beyond electoral cycles and politics, umeachia hapo tu, sustain this vision beyond electoral cycles and politics and should be supported in academia and think tanks. Hujaniambia zaidi hapo.
So you feel like they need to,
expound more on what you're saying and make someone understand it. All right. Ni kwani nimepotea? The other part.
33, we must become comfortable in our own African skin, and specifically the promotion of respect for our elders.
Na feel nika unafaa kupatia na hiyo story umetupea. Mbona ulicheka?
Mimi nilicheka because growing up I've always known that mtoto ni wa mamake na babake. You're not your neighbor's kid. And you're not really even your uncle or your aunt's kid. A family is individual.
So mtoto ni wa jamii was
growing up nilikuwa nasikia from our house helps and even from my parents, you could be told that you could not be doing something wrong and someone is approaching you and continue doing so because that person is like your parent. That person even had the right to discipline you. And I'm like, excuse me?
My neighbor would whoop my ass.
Your neighbor will whoop your ass.
If they found me doing something fine.
For real?
And I'll be reported later on for part 2 of my whooping.
So now you see, me, I've always believed that these neighbors who now try to bring up other people's children or correct other people's children are people who, wamekosa kazi, they need to mind their business. I've always seen them as, why are you interfering in something that does not concern you? Si mtoto wako nini. But I know, once upon a time, elders were really respected, regardless of whether you're the parents of so and so or whatever. So,
guys, on the side, this whole story comes from a point where Elsie is at a community meeting, an estate meeting, and bursts out when a parent says mtoto ni wa jamii, and she bursts out laughing. Hadi anafukuzwa naambiwa enda kwa nyumba utaniaibisha. But I mean, it was a big deal, like raising up children. And you see
it was a community affair.
It was a community affair. Nowadays, people are even confident about drinking in front of their kids. Wow.
Yeah.
I never saw my dad drinking. That was such a taboo.
Hey.
You just know in the background. But you'll never see botis in the house. Never, manze.
So times have really changed.
For sure.
And of course, when you're talking about times really changing and in respect of elders, elders are no longer respected like they were before. The place of elders, in fact, most of them are neglected. Some of them are taken to elderly homes. Others are forgotten who shall go by their children. And all, and the community does not take care of them. So we need to go back to that point where we respect the elders and their place in society.
For sure, man. I mean, siku hizi sio ngumu kupata mzee amesimama kwa basi na kijana kwa hapo ma earphones mbaya.
Imagine, and kijana hakia, why then did you get into this bus if you saw that it's full?
I know, man. We need to think about it more. I like that you added that part. I think just putting it, I think it's a 3-part statement and it's just too little considering what they've been done. We've seen like our freedom fighters, not just Mau Mau peke yake, but from different regions. People who fought for this country and are old right now don't even have a nice place where they can actually call a home. They struggle and they have to be fed off what their relatives will give them. And I think they have a part to be appreciated and to be cared for, even when it comes to, even if it's elderly homes where they can be, taken care of. We need to think about it. I agree.
And what about the place of the elders in resolving disputes? Because you see what used to happen, I think it still happens. That one, in that sector, I think you're to maintain that if there's a dispute in the family, it is taken to the elders.
Okay,
the elders deal with that.
And I'm gonna start from a top position. Back in the days, they had a big role when it came to
dispute resolution.
Even choosing a leader. Like if you had that, the Mary community has endorsed this person. And I'm giving it an example. How many sections, how many sects nowadays are there? You find that this group of elders have endorsed a leader, and then a new group of elders comes up and says, we don't know that
these are corrupted people.
So even from their side, it's not consolidated now. Anyone can pay out some few old-looking guys to come and say something that is totally different from what's on the ground. So, yeah, like the idea that was there in them having a kind of leadership and court resolving process and mediation process where their togetherness was seen strong is a bit shaky right now. And maybe it's because even us we have decided to go into that system and corrupt it completely. If I pay a few elders from my community to come and endorse me, I'm good to go. But I agree. They need to come back to that mediation process. They need to come back to that legal system where they are recognized. But it also needs to be clear, a clear structure. Yeah. I mean, it needs to go back to its core and roots where they were really respected, that no one would even try and infiltrate and try shake it up a bit.
So yeah, the BBI also talks about now what I had just brought up, their role in dispute resolution, that is linking elders to formal mediation processes recognized by the legal system through training and certification opportunities, and ensure that they are well connected with judicial and government institutions nationwide. Yeah, so we need these guys. And of course, we know the elders are people who've got wisdom, yeah? they have lived on this earth for longer than we have, so they have wiser insights regarding different issues and different matters. So I think that's a very good idea.
Yeah, I agree.
On to 35.
Yeah. Before 35, I just saw that part when the media should be, hey, the media, let's move on, because I feel like the media should be a topic on their own. But the media should play that role where they're the ones who are championing this message. Like they are the biggest platform right now all over. Radio is most reachable and accessible to majority of them, and whatever message they put out there is important. And so I think also
of course,
a big stakeholder is media. But let's do 35 now, where it's full-time focus on ethics. So in Kenya, we already have the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, and I'm sure you already know about it. You already know, I think they're found at Integrity Center. Yeah.
But when do you get to hear about EACC? Because to be honest, I only get to hear of them in corruption matters, but nothing to do with ethics. Zero. I've never interacted with them. Yeah.
Do they have anything at her?
No, because and the reason I've never interacted with them is because probably I've never been found with a case of corruption, and none of my relatives have done so. So I could say I've never really interacted with them.
I hear you.
Yeah. But I believe if they're the ones, if it's the body that's handling ethics, and I'm a Kenyan and I still need to learn the ethics of this country, or play a role in one way or another, I should have interacted with them. So far so good. I'd say they're not doing anything really on matters ethics, but they are really trying when it comes to dealing with corrupt individuals in the country.
How do they deal with the narrative chai is common?
How do they deal with that narrative?
I mean, that one will be a tackle. I think we need to support them really much, because I think when it comes to ethics, they won't be able to tackle it on their own.
Yeah,
I see.
Yeah. So corruption is a lion, on its own. So
I told you it's a plague.
It's a plague.
A lion is too small when it comes to this matter.
Yeah, then we can have it as the body that deals with corruption. To just deal with corruption because it's a monster, and you can do away with it maybe in 100 years. When corruption is just part of Kenya's history, but no longer there.
We remove the E and we call it the Anti-Corruption Commission.
The Anti-Corruption Commission.
And then we form a new ethics commission that can they target the whole idea of ethics on
that's all they're dealing with, And what BBI proposes is now transferring the ethics function to the national NCIC.
Kaparo.
Kaparo, yes. National Cohesion and Integration Commission. Yeah, that is what the BBI is proposing.
True. I mean, they're pointing out a few things which I agree on them. Monitor and publicly report on the ethical state, which is important, and it will address it. And I think on the first few days of whether this report will be implemented or not, if it's agreed upon, there's something like whether this report is agreed upon or not, there are some things that we have actually seen that are making sense and should be done. And this is one of them. A public report and monitoring on the ethical state is important.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can see even on part C, they talk about monitoring and reporting on the public on standards of conduct of all public office holders. Meaning it should be the body that holds accountable our elected lead, our public office holders, as it puts them.
That Nini certificate.
Let me not just talk about the elected officials, because I think 2 weeks ago there was a case about the Ministry of Finance. I don't know if it's a clerk at the Ministry of Finance with 36 million in bank accounts. I don't know.
There was
NHIF, a receptionist at NHIF. There was such a case at some point.
That guy wasn't a receptionist. He was a clerical officer. Alikuwa anaendea barua kwa post office akileta na kutumwa errands. Alafu tunasikia kona nyumba ngapi? Sijui 5.
So let's just talk about civil servants. It should be the body that holds these civil servants accountable.
I now that even to get some job applications, you need to get that
certificate
of good conduct, and also some from them from EACC.
Oh, I'm not aware.
Yeah, there's one, especially if you're holding a public office. You actually have to go, and that point where you're being interviewed, they have to play a role in it, because now people will, this guy is being put into office, ebuleteni ripoti zake mbaya zenye mko nazo na evidence. Yeah, I mean, they've done a bit more when it comes to choosing. I saw it with cabinet officers, and I think it's probably being played out also in different regions and in different spaces, which is really important. And it should be done even more. They should, hata usijaribu kuisugarcoat public officers. They should be constantly under scrutiny. By the time they choose to give a police that 200 to get away with something, we are on their necks. Because they've started with 200. What more of this 85 million that we find being sambazwa kila mahali? You see the madness that is going on now with the resources for COVID funds. There's a whole investigative report we are waiting on Sunday.
At least now we have vocal politicians like Martha Karua and Opiyo and I demanding that those funds are accounted for.
Me, I'm waiting for the investigative report, and there's football on that
we shouldn't wait for there to be a whistleblower, then for a few politicians to make demands. How about we have a body that will hold these people accountable?
Exactly. That when someone tries it even from that level, immediately I just say, I'm gonna call this number and report you if you try that on me again. They have to second guess what they're doing. Like rethink about what they just said or told you. And if you have substantiate that accusation, they're in trouble. So I agree. This one shouldn't just be for whistleblowers peke yake.
Exactly.
The linking of cultural systems of ethics with Kenya's constitutional values, I don't know much about that. You have to break it down for me. What are they trying to say? I felt like it's just kaleta ya kuongezea.
So, of course, we have our constitutional values, and you find the constitutional values right from the preamble. I think I may have highlighted on the preamble maybe during the 3rd episode, that the preamble is the spirit of the Constitution. Yeah, it is. It's kind of it's a gate. I would call it a gate that welcomes us to the Constitution. We, the people of Kenya. So the Kenyan constitutional values are found in the preamble, and it talks about several things about family, about. Let me just read the preamble. We, the people of Kenya, acknowledging the supremacy of the Almighty God of creation. One of the values is there. We acknowledge the place of God, and I think we talked about this in the 5th, the 6th episode,
somewhere in that part.
Yeah, honoring those who heroically struggled to bring freedom, proud of our ethnic, respectful of the environment, committed to nurturing and protecting the well-being of the family, the community, the individual, and all that. And of course, other constitutional values, basically everything that is written in the Constitution. One of our values, our Constitution is very vocal about not really patriotism, about transparency and accountability, about the rule of law, democracy, human respect for human rights. Those are what we call the constitutional values.
Okay.
Yeah. Our Constitution is also, it has the Article 10, which is actually my favorite article of the Constitution. The national values and principles of governance.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why you also find something about patriotism. So under Article 10.2 talks about patriotism, national unity, sharing and devolution of power, the rule of law. I think I've mentioned all these. Human rights, human dignity, good governance, integrity, transparency, and accountability. That is what we are talking about when we talk about constitutional values.
So this part they're trying to say, like I feel like it should be, maybe they'll break it down later. And I think that now I understand.
Probably they'll need to break it down because, constitutional values, it's not really easy for every person. Ordinary Kenyan.
Leave alone constitutional values. At least they're dictated somewhere. Cultural systems, linking these cultural systems. Which are these cultural systems? Which are these ones that we are going to pick?
And that's really tricky, considering that in Kenya, again, I have to take this back to the ethnic groups, different ethnic cultural systems.
Exactly.
So
they need to break it down even further.
How are they going to link the cultural systems with Kenya's constitutional values?
Exactly. And me, I don't like when they add just a statement and they don't tell me how to go about it. We need to think
something they need to expound on
a lot before we just allow them to pass it on like it's something. We are going to scrutinize this thing before they tell me vote yes or no on it. I'm not just going to accept a vote on whether I should or I shouldn't.
Thinking of cultural systems of ethics.
So there's cultural systems of ethics that is there, and you see Kenya's constitution.
Word cultural.
Exactly.
That word cultural.
Ni nini hiyo?
We are still, as much as we are all Kenyans and all,
and we are not
have the different 47 tribes with different
ways of life, different beliefs,
different values that are of course we might have the same values, but their priorities may vary from.
And you go back and you tell us you want to have inclusivity, so there's no way you're going to leave out such cultures of other places or not
exactly from the big tribes to the tribes that are not so densely populated.
Manze, so when you say such statements, I feel offended because I'm very crucial about this one-liners they pick out from nowhere and they want us to accept them. I don't like them a lot. And
well, I'd prefer that, or rather I would have advised them to just stick to Kenya's constitutional values.
See, this is now where I like when you break it down. No, sorry, let me disclaimer. I like it when you're now addressing it from else's point, Sasa. What they should add or remove. Yes.
Yeah.
Remove that cultural part.
Yeah, they should have removed the cultural part. Kenya's constitutional values. Because this constitution unites all of us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't.
We should just stick to that.
It doesn't choose one culture.
Yeah, it doesn't. Exactly.
And you can't have all of them included because you'll have to write 47 different cultures and they'll clash at some point.
Yeah.
So you just, scrap off part E.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. Put Kenya's constitutional values somewhere else where we can actually work with them moving forward and appreciate the cultures on a different space. I think we have covered what we really wanted to add on into that extra part because we didn't want to leave it at that. I felt so bad if we left it in the previous episode just like that. That's why there was a need for this extra.
Yeah.
Guys, national ethos. Listen, this is one thing that they can push, but they can only push. Implementing it is me, you, each and every one of us. Whatever they have put here, whatever they are suggesting, it won't be done by individuals. It will be done by all of us. Whether or not this report will come or not come, whatever they are saying makes a lot of sense for us. Yeah. And I think that's the important part when it comes to national ethos. Ethnic antagonism, we can cover it on its own also at some point, and competition, because even when this ethos is implemented and is working, we won't even need to talk about ethnic antagonism and competition. Yeah. And that's my biggest part. So national ethos is not a BBI, a Raila, Uhuru, Jubilee, or ODM business. No. National ethos is when I consider my neighbor, I remember my family, I remember my friends, I remember the elders, home. I remember each and every individual in this country, and I love this country. I need to get my spirit back from the Netherlands.
Please do.
Parting you need shots. To. What would you have to say, considering the whole point on national ethos?
National ethos. Well, I'm glad I have this opportunity here to, talk about the BBI when it comes to national ethos, because growing up, I was never taught anything about national ethos. Never. I mean, fine, we have the loyalty pledge, we have the symbols of national unity, but that's just it. So yes, I agree with the BBI committee. We need to come to a place where we have the national ethos. We need to come to a point whereby we have the Kenyan vision and work on that vision so that we can redefine Kenya and make Kenya prosperous. And of course, the Kenyans need to be united so that together we work together hand in hand. Yeah, in the national anthem we sing. Amkeni ndugu zetu
tufanye sote bidii
nasi tujitoe kwa nguvu nchi yetu ya Kenya tunayoipenda. We need to fine. I don't know. Sijika nimeimba vizuri but
I can't even remember it.
Yeah, sure. but from the anthem you get that you get that the founding fathers of Kenya, when they were coming up with this anthem, what is actually everything that the BBI is talking about, they wanted it. Yeah, you can tell from the anthem, because this anthem is from way back in 1963. Yeah, so we need to come to a point where we get there. Yeah, and of course, we as individuals, we also have our part. We also have our role to play towards that. Very true. And it starts by loving your own country, Timo. Bring your spirits back. It starts by appreciating your country. Thank you.
Let's say my land, my body is here. Wait, hold up. Do you think we should be singing all the 3 verses?
Yeah, it's our anthem. Yeah.
Let me hear your thoughts, guys. Elsie wants us to sing all the 3 verses. Timo, on the other hand, just wants the instrumentals to just sing and we finish. But thanks for joining us, even for the extra. See you next time.
Subscribe to this and other shows on acute.co.ke.